Hi all. Let's do some C++ namespaces. Let's start with a joke. This is from an old book, World's Book of Best Jokes by Eddie Cantor. Real old book, 1943. You can see real old pages. I got it at the library on the free rack. Is a joke about dancing. It's a young girl talking to her grandfather. The young thing was showing her grandfather some of the newer dance routines. And she says to him, "I'll bet you never saw any dancing like this back in the 90s, Grandpa?" He thought about it for a minute and said, "Once. I saw him dance like that once. Then the place was raided." Okay, so I have a few files here on namespaces. I've been teaching this stuff since it came out. When I first decided to do these on video, I wanted to start with this stuff here and just show you what a namespace is. And then as I reviewed my files, of course the first one was this thing here. So my first thought was, well, I'll just skim past that because most people probably know what it is, so why even worry about it? But I figured I have the examples, and after reading through a few things out on the internet, a few blogs and videos, there seems to be some confusion about what this stuff is. So I thought we might as well go over the examples. Okay, so first I'm going to go ahead and put this folder on C:. Okay, so I'll take this folder and put it into my C++ folder, and I'll start my compiler. Let me change the color of the screen. Screen background will be white like a piece of paper. Screen text will be black. And I'm gonna make the font just a little bigger, make it easier to read in the video. And I can also make it bold, so it's easier to read. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile this first one and we'll see what it does. And then we'll run it. You can see all it does is print out "Hello World." So it's a pretty simple application. It's just the use of namespace STD. STD is the standard library. So that's not something you can really cover in one video, but I just thought I'd bring it up because you might be seeing it in some of the books. So what's going on here is we still have iostream, but we would normally have a .h here, right? So that .h is an old style header. So the new style headers, just leave it as this with no extension. And then you use the using keyword and use the namespace called STD, the standard namespace. Okay, so what that does is it gives you access to this, right? We all know that. That's why we have to include that, right? So here we'll follow my notes here. So include iostream is the modern C++ style header. There's no .h. iostream.h is the old style header in C, just regular C. .h files are deprecated in C++. What that means, they're outdated, but you can still use them. Okay, so I'm getting this information from older books, so your compiler may be different. I doubt if they'll ever take it out totally, but you never know. So here, let's see here. I have a new compiler, fairly new. See, if I do this, right, now we're using the old style. We're using the old style header. If I try to compile this, it still works. Okay. But eventually, what this deprecated means is eventually it'll quit working. It just depends on when the compiler maker decides to take it out. So C++ allows for the old style .h header files for backward compatibility. Okay, so this line here, we're saying using the namespace STD, which stands for using the standard namespace. So what's going on there, right? So this allows for the visibility of the standard library. All we're really after is cout and endl. This guy and this guy. Okay, so including everything is not a good way to do it. It brings everything in the standard namespace into the global namespace. Okay, so I know I'm bringing up a couple things that may not be clear, but that's what we're going to talk about here. So I've been researching this for a couple weeks now before I made the video, and I can't find anything good on it. So this is probably the best thing I've found. So if we go to that link, here, I'll make it bigger. This is from GNU.org about the GCC compiler. About halfway down the page, or 3/4 way down the page, you're talking about headers and namespace STD. It says including C++ style header guarantees that the entities will be found in the namespace STD. and perhaps the global namespace. Okay, so that really doesn't clarify it much, but I've got a few more things here that I want to go over. So this is in C++ in a nutshell. It's an older version. So this is 2003. So that would be maybe a few years after this stuff really got popular. So page 45. Declarations outside of all namespaces, functions, and classes are implicitly declared in the global namespace. I wanted to go over this because you may not have heard of a global namespace if you're just using C++. So declarations outside of all namespaces. So you can see you may not understand that yet, because that's why my original thought was to go over these examples first, because you don't really know what a namespace is yet. So we just have to struggle through this, and you may have to come back and watch these a couple times so you can tie it all together. So declarations outside of all namespaces. Just think of it as a namespace, as a function. Functions and classes are implicitly declared in the global namespace. A program has a single global namespace. A program has a single global namespace, which is shared by all source files and are compiled and linked into the program. Declarations in the global namespace are typically referred to as global declarations. Global names can be accessed directly using the global scope operator. That's that guy there, the double colon. Hopefully you know what a global scope variable is, right? So it says here the global names can be accessed directly using the global scope operator, the unary double colon sign, that guy, as described earlier. Okay, so what I wanted you to see here is a program has a single global namespace, which is shared by all source files and are compiled and linked into the program. Chapter 8 starts with the standard library. It says the previous 7 chapters describe the C++ language. Okay, so we've all done C++ programs, right? That's just using the C++ language itself. Okay, so it says in this book here, the previous 7 chapters describe the C++ language. This and the next 2 chapters describe the library, the standard library. The library consists of a number of headers, those guys. in which each header declares types, macros, functions for use in C++ programs. Much of the standard library is implemented using templates. That's why I did the videos on templates, so you would have an idea of what those were. So the implementation is typically embodied entirely in header files. I'll read that line again. Much of the standard library is implemented using templates. So the implementation is typically embodied entirely in header files. The C++ library has 51 headers, each containing a set of macro, functions, type, and object declarations. A header is sometimes called a header file, but that phrase is misleading. An implementation does not need to implement headers as external files, although it is often simplest to think of a header as a file that contains macro, type, and function declarations. And then here's the important line. Almost all the names declared in the standard library are in the STD namespace. Okay, so that's this guy here. Okay, I'll read that again. Almost all of the names declared in the standard library are in the STD namespace. Okay, page 212. To use the standard library, you must # include the desired header or headers. The headers that a vendor includes within a header vary from one implementation to another, so code that compiles successfully with one vendor's environment might not compile in a different environment. The solution is to get in the habit of including all headers you need. What I wanted you to see there was, it says to use the standard library, this guy here, you must # include the desired header or headers. But it doesn't really say why, right? If here it says, here I'll show you where some of the confusion is. Almost all of the names declared in the standard library are in the standard namespace, the STD namespace, right here. But then it says here, to use the standard library, this guy here, you must include the desired header or headers. But it doesn't say why. This whole page here, I don't see how, it doesn't really say why. Okay, so my confusion, and I've seen a lot of questions out on the web too. What we've always done in the past, what we've all known in the past, is to use this stuff here, we have to include this. Well, if the whole standard library is inside here, why do we still need to include this? It doesn't make any sense. And I can't find anything on it. I've flipped through probably 20 books or more. I've gone through all types of websites, blogs, videos, and I can't find anything good on it. So this book here was probably the best one. Here, page 327, Library Reference. The entire standard library resides in the STD namespace. So it almost seems like we have to do this twice. You know, I've read some things where it says when you include this, it puts that information inside here. But page 286, we're talking about # include directive. It says the # include directive. That's just a normal include with no .h. Includes the contents of the standard header or source file. The first form searches for header and replaces the directive with the entire contents of the header. So it doesn't say nothing about putting it inside the standard namespace. So like if we go back to this here, this is on the GCC compiler. It says including the C++ style header, that's the one with no .h, guarantees the entities will be found in namespace STD. Why does it have to guarantee it? It's already in there, right? And perhaps the global namespace. So they're saying perhaps. They aren't even sure. So that's why I say, you know, this is the new way to do it. If I can find some better information on it, I'll update the video. So, okay, and then we can just skim through the rest of the first couple here. Using the whole thing, what that does is, using this whole thing, that brings the whole standard library into the global namespace. I don't know if it actually brings it into the namespace itself, or it just makes it visible. Most things that I've read, it just says it makes it visible. But most things I've seen, it says that's not a good practice, because it does bring everything into the file. Most of the books that I've seen will do it like this. They're older books, older C++ books, but if you read the fine print, they say they're just doing it like this to make these examples shorter. Okay. A better way to do it is like this. You see, we say using the standard library, go out and get cout. Using the standard library, go out and get endl. And then you can use it in your code like this. So this would be a good way to do it. Then if you had multiple functions down here, you wouldn't have to repeat this over and over. For number 3, You could do it like this. You know, instead of putting those things up there at the top, you can just put that right in your code. Which I kind of prefer this method here. I've read that some people think it's kind of clunky. It's writing a lot of code, but I don't think it's that bad myself. It's more of a personal preference whether you want to use this one or this one. I'm only bringing it up because you may see different versions in the books that you're flipping through. And then you could also do it like this, put those two lines inside of a function. And then of course they're local to that function. If you have another function down here, you would have to repeat those two lines. See, if you did it like this, then it's out in the global area, and then it would be available to all the other functions. So you can see there's multiple ways to use this STD stuff. So you can see why I wanted to skim over this or even skip this before we got into namespaces, because that's not really what I wanted to cover. Especially since I can't find anything good on what exactly happens here. If we go out and look at Barnes' book, C++, there's a newer one out, but this is the older one. Go to chapter 1 here. Okay, so page 46, the standard library namespace. Here, I'll make this bigger. Okay, page 46, the standard library namespace. The standard library is defined in a namespace called STD. That is why I wrote STD cout rather than plain cout. He's talking about this guy here. I was being explicit about using standard cout rather than some other cout. Every standard library facility is provided through some standard header similar to iostream. For example, string and list. This makes the standard string and list available. To use them, the STD prefix can be used. So here it says make the standard string facilities accessible. Make the standard names available without STD prefix. So here he says it is generally in poor taste to dump every name from a namespace into global namespace. So there's something going on here that I don't quite understand. And most of the questions I see out on the web, other people are asking the same question. Make the standard string facility accessible. Yeah, okay, we get that, right? But if everything's already declared inside the standard namespace, why do we have to do this again? Seems like we're doing double duty. It seems like we're doing the same thing twice. His book is mainly about the C++ language, and the standard library is something different. Well, he's got a whole chapter here on it. He's got a whole part here on it, part 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters on the standard library. And that's in the older book. The updated version, 2013, part 4 covers the standard library. Okay, so here on page 39, he talks about it a little bit. It says here the line # include iostream instructs the compiler to include the declarations of the standard stream IO facility as found in iostream. Without these declarations, the expression STD cout would make no sense. The operator put to writes its second argument onto its first. In this case, the string hello world is written onto the standard output stream STD cout. A string literal is a sequence of characters surrounded by double quotes. The STD specifies the name cout is to be found in the standard library namespace. It says here, I usually leave out the STD when discussing standard features. Shows how to make names from a namespace visible. See, when they talk about this stuff, they use the word visible a lot. It doesn't actually say if it's bringing it into the file or if you're going to another file to get it. You know, it just makes it visible. So using namespace STD, make names from standard visible. Oh, okay, I think Sassy's had enough. Huh. Okay, we'll call her a day there. See ya. Bye. See ya.